Welcome! I'm Johan Nilsson.
And I'm Lincoln Murphy, and this is Impact Weekly. We're here to help you make your customers successful. Each week, we answer your most pressing customer success management questions by relying on our years of experience with companies around the world.
Let's get this going. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for Impact Weekly. Fresh new question here, and this one actually came up in a meetup we had with a group of customer success managers, and I think it's a great topic to spend some time on. So the question we got was basically, what do we recommend I should develop, like in terms of skills and competence, to advance my current customer success manager role, my career, basically. So I think that's top of mind for anyone in customer success in general. Let's try to dig into this and also help anyone who wants to do this, because I think this is key. And anyone trying to build a business knows how important it is to get your team excited, to get your team to improve skills, competence, and so on. In that sense, I think it's a very good question for both an individual as well as a leader. And let's spend some time on this. I thought it was great that a lot of people asked questions around this, because I think it's phrased in a very positive way, where you have this growth mindset. How can I become better? I think that's very important in general, but maybe even specifically so in customer success, as it's an area that's developing a lot, for sure. And I don't know. When I think about career development, I think it's very good also to take the parallel to sports, like how even the best in the world usually are the ones that trains the most, or they work out, they start their day very early, they have a lot of sessions, they take inspiration from all types of areas. And I think that's a great analogy as well for anyone who wants to improve, to think of how people always in sports, the best ones, they usually have, they do a lot of training.
Yeah, I think anybody that thinks the best of the best, they just get there and then they stop. They just rest. They've made it. No.
Yeah.
If you want to be the best, you have to train like the best. And then if you want to maintain your status as the best, then you have to continue to train as the best. And I think the sports analogy is a really good one, because if you were really good in your sport 10 years ago, and you were using state-of-the-art, cutting-edge science and technology to help you become the best of the best, and you just said, I am the best, this is working for me, I'm never going to change the way I do anything. 10 years later, you've been left behind.
Yeah.
Because people who listen to the new science, the latest in scientific development, the latest in technology, the latest methods, they have surpassed you, because you stopped evolving and stopped learning 10 years ago. To be the best in sports, you can't just rest. And so that analogy works here too, because customer success is constantly changing. I can't say that it's changing faster than any other part of the business, because I pay more attention to customer success, but I will tell you, regardless of how it compares to other parts of the business, it is changing rapidly. We're very susceptible to market conditions. We have to constantly be changing with the focus of the company, lately from growth to efficiency, and moving as much as we can to async, deflecting more to self-service while maintaining the customer's appropriate experience. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So if I said, I learned customer success 10 years ago, I'm good, I don't ever have to change. By the way, I run into people who seems like that's exactly what happened. I feel like I'm talking to somebody from 10 years ago. You're going to be left behind. So you have to have, as you were saying, this growth mindset. You have to be open to learning new things. I think it's just it basically starts and stops right there.
Exactly.
If you don't have that mindset that I have to constantly be learning, nothing else we're going to talk about today, strategies, tactics, whatever, none of
No.
that's going to matter because you've basically shut yourself off from learning. But I suspect if you're listening to our podcast in general, but especially this one, and you've made it this far, you probably have that growth mindset. So
Yeah.
we can put that to rest. But
Yeah.
but I will just say, don't ever lose that.
No.
Because once you lose that, things will start to go downhill. You will get
Yeah.
left behind. And I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah. And I would say at heart, it's mostly for yourself, because I think one of the core things with motivation is progress, right? So if you stagnate, I think a lot of times it's not that you have churn or you have issues or whatever that actually makes you leave a company. It can be the case, but to leave customer success, it's usually that you stagnate, that you keep doing the same things. You basically are not growing, are not progressing in your role. I think that's the big killer to motivation. That's the big killer for a career, basically. And growth mindset, you're never done, right? You can always improve. You can always find you can always grow in your role.
Totally.
Uh,
Yeah. I think just recognizing that as part of that growth mindset, that wanting to learn more, just recognizing just simply that customer success itself is evolving, that you're not even talking about, you're not even talking about accumulating more of an abundance of new skills and new concepts. It's really just sometimes the thing that you have been doing this certain way for
mm,
years has changed. One thing has changed and you haven't kept up with that.
mm.
And now you're trying to do things today with something that worked 5 years ago,
Oh yeah.
and it doesn't work as well now.
Mm.
So it's just because you haven't sought out the latest and greatest ways of doing things. And so what worked 5 years ago to make you world class in your role
Mm,
is now actually keeping you from
mm.
being world class. And you may notice, yeah, my performance has slipped. I haven't hit my numbers in the same way that I had. I feel like I'm not as efficient. I feel like things are harder. And if that's what you're feeling, it's probably because you're not using the right tools. Your tools have not been sharpened. You have a great
Yeah.
analogy there that I think is apt.
Yeah. No, but I think basically, and we know this as well, a lot of times the customer success manager is running like above capacity. And I think if we take this analogy of chopping wood, we're so busy chopping wood all the days that we never stop and actually sharpen the axe, right? Old story there. But I think it's relevant, really. And it's both, as you say, things change in customer success, but also things change in your company. Maybe you started off as a startup where you basically it was quick and dirty, just make things work, and then as you grow, as your product evolves, as your customers mature, you can't keep. You need to improve things. You need to do things differently. Also, the experience and the appropriate experience might evolve as well during this period of time, both as technology change, as the company grows. Maybe your offering evolves as well. So there's a lot of things, a lot of dynamics to this. So that plays into also all looking to take the next step and actually adding more things to your competence and skills.
For sure. I do like the chopping wood analogy
Yeah.
and being so busy. Because again, we have to acknowledge CSMs are often, like you said, well over capacity, meaning
Mm.
you're working with far more customers than you should be, given the amount of person hours actually required to deliver the customer their appropriate experience while helping them achieve their goal. So we know that, and I know that you're busy. As a CSM, you need to take the time to sharpen that axe, though, because to use that analogy and take what I was saying earlier about just things You're not hitting your numbers like you used to. Things are a little bit more complicated now, a little bit more complex feeling, at least. You're not as efficient. It's because you're chopping wood with a dull axe.
Right.
You haven't taken the time to sharpen it, but you're so busy. You're too busy to sharpen it. At least that's the excuse. And so you need to be deliberate. You need to make time to sharpen your axe. And so to take that analogy into what we're talking about here, you need to make time for your professional development, for your training, whatever that's going to look like in your unique situation. We'll talk more about all the different aspects of professional development that you need to be looking at, but you need to take time to sharpen that axe so that the work that you're doing is more efficient, is as efficient as it can be. And you're not just working extra hard to get the same or even worse results. If you have a dull axe, it's going to take you longer, less firewood.
Yeah.
Because,
right.
And you're going to be much more exhausted.
Yeah.
It's just bad if you would just simply take time to sharpen your axe. And then, of course, your manager, your head of customer success, should recognize this and should make time in everybody's schedule to sharpen their axes, to sharpen their skills for professional development, to just completely mix metaphors and analogies here. But I think, but I love that. I think there are these real world examples like sports and wood chopping that we can bring in here, because all to just say, you would never expect a world-class athlete to be using outdated concepts and technology and science. And you would never expect somebody who's chopping a lot of wood to use a dull axe. And yet here we are in our role doing exactly that. And it just doesn't make any sense. So I want to make sure that we're not doing that.
And I think also, as you say, if you're a leader listening to this and you have a team, it's a culture. It's an important thing for your culture as well to say, we are growing. We have a growth mindset as a company as well. And I want my team to have supercharged access. And we are in the long-term game here. We're not, and I want to invest in my team. I want to invest in their skills and competence, because we're going to do major things going forward. I think that's important from a leadership point of view here as well.
Think about that. If you're trying to attract world-class CSMs, and you as a leader in customer success, and the culture that you've created in your environment is one of scarcity, is one of set it and forget it. No, we're not about growth mindset. We're not about consistent training. You're not going to attract those world-class team members like you think you are. You want people on your team that are going to be seeking out that professional development, that want to grow in their role. So as a leader, you want to cultivate that as part of your culture, so that you are attracting and keeping those CSMs with that mindset. So that's a really good point. This is both an individual contributor thing, taking control of your own career and making sure that you're excelling in your role, but it's also from a leadership standpoint, making sure that you're creating an environment for your CSMs and other individual contributors to thrive. And so it's twofold. And if everybody is doing their part there, man, the organization is going to just be amazing. The results are going to speak for themselves.
And an important part to that is also that a lot of times, we know this by experience, is that the CSMs might not always raise their hand and say, hey, my axe is a little bit dull here. I think that's also important, to not wait for CSMs to say, hey, I need training.
I mean, that's such, from a head of customer success standpoint, you need to be really in tune with your team. You need to not just wait for those signals that indicate a team member or the team itself as a whole need training. So we're not just looking for people that aren't hitting their numbers, or that are struggling, or that are getting feedback from other team members or from their customers, or you're giving them feedback on things that they need to improve. Yes, all of those are indicators that training is needed. But as a head of customer success, we just want to be proactive and say, on an annual basis, at least, I want my CSMs to get up to speed on the latest and greatest of what's out there in terms of customer success, as well as be just more general things and domain specific things. We'll talk about that in just a minute about like what kind of training should I be looking for to advance my role, advance my career. But as a head of customer success, you should really make sure that you're looking out for these things. But one thing you also need to look out for, and as a CSM, you need to be aware of this, and that's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I think I bring this up in the context of training and in the context of improving your standing as a CSM, moving your career forward, all of those things, because it's very real. And again, is imposter syndrome something that is prevalent in other parts of the business? I'm sure it is. I pay more attention to customer success, and therefore I see it a lot more in customer success. I do feel like I see it a lot though. And so imposter syndrome is really just this idea of the individual contributor, the person, the human person doing the job, feeling like, at least at some points, feeling like they don't deserve to be in this role. They don't have the qualifications, whatever. It's not like they lied on their resume and still got the job. It's just this feeling that they have. Like, I'm an imposter. I don't really belong here. Now, most of the time, well, for this to be imposter syndrome, it means right there that it's not true. Right? You're not actually an imposter. You do deserve to be here. And in Impact Academy, we talk about this concept of objective confidence, where we go through basically your qualifications that you can keep right there with you at all times, so that when you're not feeling it that day, when you're feeling like an imposter, you can look at that and say, you know what? Objectively, I deserve to be here. But one of the things that can happen when you have CSMs or other individual contributors with imposter syndrome is they might not raise their hand and say, I need training.
Right.
More so than a CSM who's just too busy to sharpen their axe, right? They're just in the weeds. They're doing the work. Someone with imposter syndrome may not want to raise their hand and say they need training, because that would be admitting out loud that they don't know something. And so somebody who's already feeling like an imposter doesn't want to call attention to that.
Yeah.
But that's just like imposter syndrome itself being this really misguided way of looking at yourself. Again, that's why we have our objective confidence framework to get you past that. This idea that training is only for people who don't know something, don't know how to do something, are in a role that they are not qualified for, so they need something to qualify them for that role. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
Training is there to, yes, fill in the gaps, fill in knowledge gaps, of course. But in customer success, especially, it's about letting you know what's changed, what's been updated, what should you be doing today that you may not be doing, because when you learned how to be a CSM 5 years ago, the world has changed, and now we do things this way. It's not about, for anybody, imposter syndrome or otherwise, saying, I need training because I don't know something. It's very often about, I knew this thing. Is this still the right way to do it? Or has it been updated? Is there a different way to do it? Is there a better, more efficient way to do it? And so a lot of people that come through Impact Academy are CSMs and heads of CS that have been doing this for years. And they just want to make sure that they have the latest and greatest, most up-to-date ideas on what to do. Here's what world-class companies are doing right now that works. That's what we go over in Impact Academy. But whether you come to Impact Academy or not, that's not the point. The point is, I want you to seek training, not because you don't know how to do something, although that's certainly a reason to do it, but also because you just want to make sure that what you're doing in your role is what world-class companies are doing right now. And so you can apply that to your unique situation.
Yeah. And it's also, it's of course about new things and staying on top of that, but it's also always the next level, right? You can always refine your things. There's a depth in everything we do in customer success that there's always the next level. And I think here's like the sports analogy, right? The best people in the world, if you're Michael Jordan shooting hoops, you know how to do that, right? But there's always like refinement and practice and staying top of your game. I think that's also part of this. And I think another aspect of training, and I see this way too often, and I think it's really harmful both for you as a CSM, but even more so also maybe for your customers, is that you actually let your customer success managers practice on your customers.
Yes.
And I think that's the way in some companies, that's the way you learn, is that you try things and you practice. How do you do a business review? How you do a meeting? How you do a goal discovery? Whatever you're doing, you're practicing on the customers, and that's the way you learn. And I think I think that can be really hurtful in many ways.
Yeah. Look, we talked about this before we went live. We're talking about startups, and very often in early stage startups, you don't know what you don't know. And so you have to just try stuff with your customers, right? See what sticks. But at some point,
Mm.
sooner rather than later, usually you do know what you don't know. And it's time to stop training new people on customers and just hoping that they don't mess up too bad that the customer so bad that the customer churns. Yeah, training with customers, at least as the first part of your training. At some point, you need to start working with customers, but like
Of course.
going through the initial phases of training with your customers is a really bad idea.
Mm.
So if you're going to find training, whatever that is, however you find it, this is what we do at Impact Academy. You want to make sure that you're able to bring in your existing customers as context for the training, so
Right.
that you're working with real customer data, real customer context, just whatever that
Mm.
is. But you're doing it in a way that is not actually working with the customer. You're doing role playing, you're doing other structured engagement around real customer
Mm.
context, so that you're practicing in a way that's going to be applicable when you
Yeah.
start working with customers. But man, yeah, you can't just take a CSM and give them their book of business and say, for the first 90 days, just work with your customers and we'll review it every once in a while, make sure you're doing good. Like, it's a great way to churn and burn
Oh yeah.
customers. So just don't do that.
Oh, and also I think there's a big difference here between theory and practice when you work with customers and customer success. And maybe if you, well, what was said in the interview process for you starting the job, how they described how you work with customers and the reality, it can be quite a difference. So it's also, if you want your team to be successful, to just make them practice on their customers and basically throw them into the deep and hope they swim. That's also a great way to lose people, good people even. It can be hurtful both in terms of turnover of your own staff and team, and it can also be a big disaster in terms of churn and unhappy customers.
Yeah, that part about this. So I said churn and burn your customers, but what you just said is absolutely perfect. This is a great way to burn out new CSMs quickly. Like,
Yeah.
just completely hurt their experience right out of the gates. I think we alluded to it a few times, and I want to make sure we cover this. When it comes to the type of training that a CSM or other individual contributor on a team might need, there's essentially 4 categories.
Right.
And then so I want to go through those, and then I want to talk
Mm.
about how we do things at Impact Academy.
Mm.
Again, I'm not trying to just make this an Impact Academy pitch. You get training from wherever you can, that's fine. But I want to explain how we approach this and how I think you should be approaching your training for
Mm.
yourself, or if you're head of customer success, for your team. Because I think what we have is a good way to do this. And so we basically have 4 different categories of training. There's general, then domain specific, then customer success specific, and then product specific. And
Right.
so general training would be things that they're not customer success specific. They're things that could apply across the board. So we've mentioned objective confidence
Mm.
as a framework. That's something that anybody can use.
Yeah.
Conflict resolution, active listening, right?
Right.
These are all things that are super important, really critical, we believe at Impact Academy, to customer success, but they're not customer success specific, right?
No.
They're just these general concepts. Then you have these things that are domain specific. So these would be things that are specific to the industry that your product serves, the industry that your customers work in, maybe finance or education or something like that. It's
Yeah.
stuff that is unique to the finance world, which of course there's going to be subsets of that, or education, healthcare, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then there's customer success specific training. So these are things that are going to be ways to do better in your role as a CSM, as an onboarding specialist, as a head of customer success. These are going to be things that are focused on particular life cycle stages. So onboarding, adoption, ongoing engagement, expansion, renewal, right? Very specific life cycle stage training.
Yeah.
And then you have product specific training. That's probably going to be internal to your company, right? That you have to know your product in order to help your customers achieve their goals by using your product. Right? So you're going to need that training. Most of the time, we see this sort of working bottom up from product specific first.
Right.
In fact,
sometimes only, right?
Yes, that it often stops there. And we know that, look, our company is built around our product. In fact, for a technology company, like our product, for all intent and purposes, is our business, right? Our product is the most important thing, except of course, it's not. Our customers are really the most important, and their use of the product is not the most important thing. It's their use of their product in service of their goals.
Right.
But without the product, we don't have a business. Yes, it's very important. But often that the training stops at product. But also a lot of people that move into customer success, at least moving internally in a company, they'll come from something to do with product. It might be some sort of account management, technical account management. Maybe they'll move in from support. So they have, or training, so they have some product knowledge. But that's something that's going to happen internally. And then we'll go into customer success specific training. And that's, again, either going to be internally, or maybe you'll find something like Impact Academy and you'll train your CSMs, or you'll seek this out for yourself and you'll learn, again, role specific and lifecycle stage specific stuff. And maybe there's going to be some domain specific training that you're going to do, probably internally, maybe through industry organizations, associations, things like that. That's not always going to be required. If you have a horizontal product that works with pretty much any industry, you're probably not going to have to really worry about domain specific stuff. But if you have a horizontal product that a large portion of our customers are in healthcare, you may be a CSM that works specifically with healthcare customers, and you might have to go through some healthcare specific training as an example. And then the general stuff, again, objective confidence, conflict resolution, active listening, etc. Outside of the product training and the domain specific training, we believe that customer success specific training should also include those general things. So we have built at Impact Academy, we've built into the customer success specific training, we've pulled in these general concepts like objective confidence, like active listening, just to make sure that you are getting what you need, because nothing exists in a vacuum, right? Now, what we also believe, and again, the way we structured it at Impact Academy, you can do this on your own. You can figure out another way of doing this. I'm not trying to just tell you to come to Impact Academy, is we give our students the customer success specific training. We give them the general concepts that they need as well. And then we give them the opportunity to bring in their domain specific concepts, their domain specific language. And we also give them the opportunity to bring in their real customers, context, as we talked about earlier. So in our training, they are working with what is essentially real life scenarios with real customers. They're not training with the customer, but they're training with the customer context. And then they're able to use that and share that with others in the training and learn how others in the training have applied this way of thinking. And so they get to see all of this. And so we believe that kind of taking that holistic approach of CS specific plus general, plus bringing in your domain specific concepts in your customer context, that's going to give you the best outcome when it comes to training. Again, that's how we've structured it at Impact Academy. We believe that's the best way to do this. if you come to Impact Academy, that'd be awesome. But the point is, I think we have to recognize that there are these different buckets that you can pull from when it comes to training. And so CSMs don't just need just the customer success vocabulary list and some high level concepts. And then it really needs to be this holistic approach that brings in these other concepts and make sure they have a very clear understanding of how to apply these things to their unique relationship with the customer. I think if you look at it that way, and you go about, going back to the question of the day, it's like, how do I advance my career? You find that training that brings all of that stuff together, and you seek that out, and you seek it out before you're getting those signals that say you need training. You're being proactive with that. Your head of customer success is being proactive with that. And that's what's really important there.
But I think it's great to separate those four, and then whether you go at Impact Academy or you do it by yourself, but that's a great way to just identify what's needed, basically. Both as it's good for you as a customer success manager, but also for a head of customer success that wants to make sure that you have all the skill and competence in your team. But I think we covered a lot here, so let's wrap it up and help this person asking the question. What are the 3 things to take away from today? I'll start off, and I think, as we mentioned in the beginning here, the growth mindset is really key. Progress, I think that's the big motivator for anyone. So with a growth mindset, you will have progress.
Totally. And I think the second one would be proactive and deliberate in your training. Don't wait for those negative signals that you need training. Seek it out, be consistent, and be proactive and deliberate in your training.
And last here, I would say promote yourself here, that you want training, that you've done training, that you basically want to grow in your role. I think it's really important in customer success to be actively promoting yourself. So don't forget about that as well. All right, that's all for today. See you again soon. All the best. Hey, thanks for listening. Do you want to bring your customer success to the next level? Check out Impact Academy. We have training programs for customer success managers and for leaders in customer success.